Hello guys, welcome to the Nexoel Trading Hub YouTube channel. So we are going to be looking at the weekly forecast for the coming week. So basically this is the dollar index and this is the monthly time frame. So what we can see is that prices have mitigated our monthly fair value gap and we can see volume now trading to the downside. So basically from the monthly time frame, we can't really have a clear weekly perspective. So let's go to the weekly time frame so that we can begin to look at that. Last week we identified the daily bearish order block within this weekly fair value gap, and we clearly saw this weekly breakout block. And last week I told us to expect the possibility of a bullish move so that price could take out this high due to this fair value gap, because I saw also price was respecting the weekly breakout block. But what I failed to take into consideration is that price mitigated the daily bearish order block. So we could see the possibility of a bearish movement to the downside, since last 2 weeks ago we identified this weekly fair value gap which wasn't mitigated, but now we can see price return to mitigate that. And clearly, if you're in the mentorship program, based on the CRT theorem I've been telling you guys and teaching you, you would see clearly that we had a sweep of this high, but then volume closed below that, and hence we can see what bearish movements back into the sponsorship zone. And what we can see is that now, in confluence to this fair value gap, we have this mitigation block here. Price mitigated the fair value gap in confluence to this mitigation block. So we don't really know what price may do next, but based on the CRT, clearly now we can see that the volume of this weekly candle closed below this week low, also this week low. So we could expect to see what bearish movement, further bearish movement to the downside in the dollar index. But basically, I would tell us to wait and see how Monday is going to deliver. Then we can consider the direction to actually go in the dollar index. So let's check the daily time frame. So here in the daily time frame, what we can clearly see is this is the sell side liquidity, and we can see the weekly fair value gap. Price have returned into that weekly fair value gap. Last week we saw price reacting at this fair value gap, give us this bullish movement to the upside. And then I told us to expect the possibility of further bullish continuation to take out the buy side liquidity. But what we can clearly see is that price respected the daily bearish order block, which we can clearly see here. We have that daily bearish order block. We can see clearly here, this is the daily bearish order block. So price mitigated the daily bearish order block and then gave us a bearish movement to the downside. We can see how Monday gave us an impulse to the downside. So meaning violated this fair value gap. Then we should know this is going to act as an inversion fair value gap. And clearly we can see how price returned to retest that. And then we had the bearish continuation to the downside into the weekly sponsorship zone, which is the weekly fair value gap. In confluence, we have this mitigation block. So clearly also from the daily time frame, we can see that we have this daily candle, the volume closed below this week low, and also this daily candle week low. So basically now, if we are to consider our price movements, we do not really know if price is going to give us that bullish movement, to give us a bullish continuation, or we could see further bearish continuation to the downside, to this sell side liquidity. In extension, we have the sell side liquidity. So basically now, what we are to expect to see is, we want to see if price doesn't reach the low of this candle week, and then possibly we have Monday gave us more bearish movement to the downside, creating a fair value gap. Then we should know that the dollar index wants to continue a bearish movement to the downside. But if Monday gives us a movement to the upside, violating this candle low, closing above that, then we could see price being attracted to this buy side liquidity, and then we could expect to see bullish movement to the upside. So basically, this is what I'm expecting to see in the dollar index. I'm not going to really look forward to executing a trade on Monday until I see something clear from the chart. So we can also see from the 4-hour time frame, we can see we had this bullish order block, price traded to the outside, return and violated that. So if we see price return without trading further to the upside, then we should know that we would continue bearish to the downside. But then if price trades and then goes above this level I've identified also from the daily time frame, then we should know that price has been attracted to the buy side liquidity back to the upside. So this is all I have to show us, guys, for the dollar index. So let's check out the EURUSD and the other pairs for the coming week. This is EURUSD and this is the monthly time frame. So clearly in EURUSD, just like the DXY, we could see the reaction within the monthly fair value gap. Also in EURUSD, we can see that reaction. Now we can see price trading to the upside. This is the open price. So if price is going to continue bullish, so where's the next sponsorship zone that price is attracted to? It is this monthly fair value gap. So I'm not saying that price has resumed a bullish movement, but I'm just pointing this out. So let's get to the weekly time frame. So here in the weekly time frame, what clearly we can see is within that monthly fair value gap, the bullish monthly fair value gap, we can see here we have this weekly fair value gap. I pointed out price reaction at this sponsorship zone. And clearly what we can see is, last week too, I expected us to see bullish movements, but then have a bearish continuation to the downside. But then we can see price maintained more bullish movement to the upside. Because what we can see clearly is we have the sweep of this liquidity. So basically, based on the CRT I've been teaching in the mentorship program, you would see price swept liquidity, volume closed above. So, we can see this bullish movement to the upside. Now, clearly, we can see prices reacting within this open close price, which I told us also act at times as key levels, especially when it is close to an order block. So now what we can see is this is the monthly bearish fair value gap, and we have this weekly fair value gap. So what we can clearly see is if price is going to continue bullish, then we should be looking at price returning into this fair value gap zone. So let's go to the daily time frame to see a clearer perspective to that. So here in the daily time frame, last week clearly we saw price reacting at this bearish fair value gap. We saw this movement. So basically now we're anticipating to see the possibility of further bearish continuation to take out the buy side liquidity. But Monday gave us a bullish movement. So basically now this was going to serve as a daily inversion fair value gap. So we can see the return price nearly mitigated that. Then we had bullish continuation to the upside. So basically this is the weekly open close price. Here you can see we have this order block basically. So we can regard the bearish colored candle as our order block. So we can see prices reacting at that zone. So for the Euro USD, the same thing I would just tell us, guys. Let's just wait to see how Monday delivers. So if we're going to continue bullish also, then we would want to see that price doesn't trade and goes below this week high points. And then price may give us a bullish movement, leaving a fair value gap to give us a sign that price wants to continue bullish. So basically this would be the draw on liquidity, and also this other would be the draw on liquidity. And we have the weekly fair value gap. So basically this is what I'm expecting. But then if we are expecting to see bearish movement, then we should take bearish movement to this level first, and not take a bearish movement with a long-term goal to see that this would be taken out. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here clearly in the 4-hour time frame, we can see price reacting at that open close price in the weekly time frame, which in the daily time frame we saw the bearish order block. So basically now we can see price give us this movement, return, took out this liquidity, give us this bullish movement. So if we want to frame a bearish movement, then we should frame that bearish movement to this price level here. So you can see this was identified from the daily time frame, and clearly you can see this is where I identified the bullish order block, down close candle before this bullish movement, and we can see we had the sweep of liquidity. So sell to this level if you have a clear sell model. You can sell to this level and wait to see the reaction of price before you continue bearish. But then clearly now we can see when we are dealing with a daily dealing range, we should be expecting bullish movement to the upside. But then since we can see price reacting at a key level, then we could see the possibility of a bear movement before we have a bull movement to the upside. So basically I would just allow Monday to trade so that I would have a clear perspective to what to expect in the Euro USD pair also. So this is what I have to show us, guys, in the Euro USD. So let's check the GBP USD pair. This is GBP USD, and this is the monthly time frame also. So what we can clearly see is that price reacted at this rejection block, and we can see how price just gave this impulse back to the upside. So we can see price give us the swing low point, sponsored this movement that took out this high point. Now price return took out this sell side liquidity, mitigated the rejection block, and then we have the continuation. So now what we can see is if price is going to continue bullish, so we have this open close price and we have this monthly fair value gap here. So let's go to the weekly time frame. So here in the weekly time frame, what we can clearly see is we can see where we had that rejection block. We can see this down close candle before this bullish movement to the upside. So this is the sell side liquidity. Price took out this sell side liquidity here, and what we can clearly see is price gave us bullish movement to the upside. So, last week I was expecting to see that we could just see a return of price to the upside, and then we have the bearish continuation. But then price just gave us bullish momentum to the upside. So what we can clearly see here, we have the monthly fair value gap. In confluence, we can see we have this weekly fair value gap. So basically, if we are continuing bullish, based on the CRT, we can see that volume closed above this, and also this volume also closed above this open price. So if we are continuing bullish, then we can look forward to see price takes out this buy side. In extension, we have this buy side liquidity. So we can see that price may return to retest this as an inversion fair value gap and continue bullish to the upside. We can really find a sponsorship zone aside from this bullish order block that was violated to the downside. So here we have the bullish order block that price broke to the downside because we have that engulfing candle there. So if you're going to see any form of a rejection or possible bearish continuation to the downside, then we'll look forward to this price level. So we could see price react here and give us a bear movement to the downside, but then we could see further bullish movements. So that bearish movement could just be a form of a pullback to the downside for further bullish continuation. So let's check the daily time frame so that we can have a daily clear perspective for the weekly projection. So now clearly what you can see from the daily time frame is this is the zone we identify from the weekly, and here we can see we have this daily rejection block zone. So last week we expected to see the possibility of price continuing bearish, but we can see price just violated that to the upside. So we could see this was Friday's candle. So in confluence to EURUSD and based on the analysis and forecast made for DXY, we expected to see the possibility of a bearish continuation, a return to mitigate, and then bearish continuation. But then what we can see is what? Bullish movement all through. So price have violated this weekly bearish fair value gap, which is going to act as an inversion fair value gap. Clearly here we can see that up price still reacted just within it and then give us movement to the upside. And what we can clearly see is that now prices also within this bearish fair value gap, and then we can also see that volume slightly close above it. So basically now this is the buy side draw on liquidity, but here we have the rejection block. So if price is continuing bullish, we could just see a reaction at this rejection block for price to mitigate this bearish fair value gap as an inversion fair value gap, and then we have the bullish continuation to the upside. So we just have to wait to see how Monday is going to trade so that we determine if we are bullish or bearish. Because now you don't just trade just the structure, you also identify the present price delivery, how volume is being delivered. You can see here the delivery of volume here is strongly bullish. So even though we have this as a rejection block zone, which you can also redefine as an order block, a bearish order block, you can see that volume is quite huge within that zone here. So we have to wait to see the delivery on Monday if price is going to give us volume to the upside, or we'll start seeing bearish movement to the downside. And if we're having bearish movement to the downside, the far distance we could expect to see that bearish movement is actually to the level of this bullish order block, the down close candle before the bearish movement to the upside. So we could see the mitigation of that first. If price violates that, then we can consider that now price is aiming for the sell side liquidity. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here in the 4-hour time frame, what we can clearly see is that within the daily rejection block, here we have this fair value gap, we have the order block here. In confluence, the zone we identify from the weekly, you can see also coincide with this bearish order block, and we have the fair value gap. So we just have to wait to see what happens. If price possibly going to push to the upside into this fair value gap, if we see that price respects the zone and then start giving us bearish movement and want to sell to the downside to this level before we start determining if price is going to go strongly bearish to the downside. So if you're looking for a bullish movement, so you could start looking for a bullish movement at this zone to the upside. Or if you're looking for a bearish movement, then you have to see the delivery of price at this zone to the downside. So I would just want to allow Monday to trade so that I would have a clear perspective to that. Let's go back to the daily time frame. Here in the daily time frame, we can just see that the impulse is just bullish. So dealing with the CRT, this is the recent candle, the daily candle, and we can see volume close above all of these candles here. So basically the expectation will be more bullish movement to the upside. But then let's wait to see the reaction of price at the rejection block and the impulse that will create on Monday. That would also help us determine where we should actually aim for price movements, if price is going to continue to the upside or to the downside. Basically, I'm just showing you the two perspectives, the bullish and bearish, because it is not really clear. So this is what I have to show you guys in the GBPUSD. So let's check the AUDUSD pair. So guys, this is AUDUSD and this is also the monthly time frame. So what we can clearly see is, in extension, our draw on liquidity based on the sell side is actually to see price drop to the sell side liquidity, but this is a rejection block, so that is not something we should look forward to see that the market will take out the sell side liquidity. First, it would be this, but then what we can clearly see is that price reacted at a weekly bullish order block, and we can see this movement now back to the upside. And if price is going to continue bullish to the upside, because we can see this bearish momentum, now price further went to the downside, took out the sell side liquidity. Now we are seeing a return to the upside. We have this fair value gap, and from the weekly time frame we have a bearish order block here. So let's go to the weekly time frame. So what we can clearly see from the weekly time frame is we can see the bullish weekly order block that price returned to mitigate. We can see this return did not mitigate the body of the bullish order block. Now what we can clearly see, it is this return that mitigated that, and then now we can see price give us bullish movements. After the mitigation, we can see a sweep, volume close above into this volume of this bearish candlestick, and now we have further bullish movement to the upside. Now based on CTR, we can clearly see that the volume of this close above this and also above this, so we could expect to see what's more bullish movement. So if we're expecting to see more bullish movement in AUDUSD, they'll be looking forward to this weekly bearish order block. But then, you know, price is reacting at a sponsorship zone, this fair value gap. First, this is the fair value gap from this low to this high point. Price return mitigated that and fell. Now we are seeing a return. Price mitigated the fair value gap left from this low to this high, and now we are seeing bullish volume to the upside. Let's drop to the daily time frame to see what we can clearly see from that. So now here in the daily time frame, you know, last week we basically identified this fair value gap, how price was reacting at that, and also this fair value gap. We have the bearish fair value gap and the bullish fair value gap. We saw price trading within that range, but then Monday gave us impulse to the upside that broke through that. Now price returned to retest this as an inversion fair value gap back into this weekly fair value gap. So now what we can clearly see is we have this bearish order block in the daily time frame. So we have the bearish order block here. Let's identify that. So we have this bearish order block. So what we can now clearly see is we have this open close price, which at times price can just react at that and drop without really mitigating the body of the order block. So now what we can see is AUDUSD is not really clear. That's just the truth. I have to be sincere. AUDUSD is not really clear to me. So we could see price give us a bearish movement to the downside, and then we have further bullish movement. Or price may trade into this bearish order block in the daily time frame, return to retest this as an inversion fair value gap, and we continue bullish to the upside. So I will just have to wait to see how Monday trades. That will help me determine what I am to expect. But based on the daily dealing range, we can also see we had this movement, this consolidation, price for the move to the upside, volume close above this candle high. So we could see price still respect that and then continue bullish to this bearish order block. So basically that is what may happen, because now we can see volume close above this high in an extension, this other high. So we could see a return, a bearish, little bearish reaction, and then we have bullish to this, and then we could see what price may print, the reaction at this bearish order block, to determine if the market is going to be bearish next, or we could see for the bullish movement to the upside. Let's check the 4-hour time frame, guys. Here's the 4-hour time frame. So basically in the 4-hour time frame, we can see that price here took out this bearish order block in the 4-hour time frame. We can see this impulse to the upside. So basically now we could see price return to react at this zone here. We could see price deep into that zone and continue bullish to the upside. That is what we could see. We could see a return to mitigate this zone, and then we have bullish continuation to the upside. You can clearly see from the 4-hour time frame, broke through our daily fair value gap, return, retest as an inversion fair value gap, price return mitigated this fair value gap, bullish reaction, return into this fair value gap, bullish reaction. So we could see return into this fair value gap, do price return into it, but then we could see a return to probably retest this, and then we have bullish continuation to the upside. So this is just it. AUDUSD is really not clear, but this is what I have to show you guys in the AUDUSD pair. So let's check out the NZDUSD pair. This is NZDUSD, and this is a weekly time frame. So we can see price reacted at this rejection block, weekly rejection block, and then we have the bullish movement to the upside. Last upper week, price took out this sell side liquidity, volume closed above that, and then we can see price sponsored bullish movement back into this weekly fair value gap. So if we're going to continue bullish, because we are seeing bullish impulse, if price violates this weekly fair value gap, they'll be looking forward to see more bullish movements into this weekly bearish order block, because we also have this fair value gap resting here. So you could see price for the sponsor movement to the upside into the weekly bearish order block and the bearish fair value gap. So let's check the daily time frame. Here in the daily time frame, what we can see, last week we saw the same reaction just as the AUDUSD, price reacting at the fair value gap, give the bearish movement, but then now we can see price give us impulse to the upside on Monday back into this fair value gap. Here also in the NZDUSD, we can clearly see in the daily time frame we have this bearish order block and we have the open close price there. So we could see price give us for the bullish move to this zone, and then return to retest this as a weekly inversion fair value gap before we have the bullish continuation. Or what you could just anticipate is price mitigating this fair value gap, this weekly fair value gap, and then we could have that return to retest this bullish order block before we have the bullish continuation to the upside if price is going to continue bullish. So we have to wait and see the price delivery on Monday. If price gives us a reason for a buy continuation, then we're going to work with a buy continuation to the upside. Let's check the 4-hour time frame. So what we can see from the 4-hour time frame is price is reacting at this 4-hour bearish order block at the open close price. You can clearly see that. And now we are having price failing to go above that. So we have this fair value gap below. So we could take a sell move, but you just want to take that sell move when you see a clear reason to take that sell move. But what you can clearly see here is that price gave you this engulfing candle. We had this bearish movement, price gave us this bullish, volume close above this. Now we have this movement still within or close to the main threshold of this bullish candle. So we could see price gives us the bullish continuation. But if price gives us a volume to the downside and close below the low of this bodies, then we could see that is the change in state of delivery. Then we could sell to the downside to this level before we can determine if we're going to continue bearish, or we could look forward towards bullish structure for bullish continuation to the upside. So basically now we are working with the volume we are seeing being delivered presently. When you check the weekly time frame, what we are having is a bullish volume to the upside. So we're basically having a bullish volume to the upside. So you can see where we identified that daily order block. You can see we have this open close price, unmitigated week here. So that is why we could still expect more bullish movements to the upside. So basically looking at volume, we're still expecting bullish movements to the upside, except the dollar index respect the weekly fair value gap we identify from the dollar index weekly time frame, and then we have a bullish movement. That is why I'm emphasizing that we just have to wait to see how Monday delivers, then we can frame our movements in the markets. So guys, let's check out the USDJPY pair. So guys, this is USDJPY and this is a weekly time frame. And if you really want to join the free Telegram community, the link to that is in the description section to this video, because whenever there is a change of narrative in the market, at times I do share trade setups in the free Telegram community. And if also you want to join the mentorship program, the link to that is also in the description section and in the comment section if you want to really understand how we make use of this trading methodology and also get to understand the entry models, because there are a lot of stuffs I can't just cover and make them available in the YouTube channel. But then I've made it to be a responsibility upon me to be making weekly forecast available and some few contents available to just treat some certain important aspects that you all need to know. So you can join the free Telegram community to actually utilize the setup I do share at times, and you can see most times those things I share do work out. I'm not saying all of it works out because I pay diligent attention to the narrative in the market, and then it is upon that I share setups to the free community. So guys, what we can clearly see here is the USDJPY monthly time frame. We have this monthly inversion fair value gap. I pointed out how price have been respecting this bearish order block. So we can see prices just giving us a consolidated movement. Price will move higher, drop to the downside based on the monthly perspective. So let's check the weekly time frame. So here in the weekly time frame, what we can clearly see is, from last upper week, I identified this inversion fair value gap. In Confluence, we have this weekly fair value gap. How price respected that, you can see again, price again still return respecting that zone and pushing to the upside. If price is going to violate the zone, then we have this fair value gap below as the next zone that price may possibly want to return to. But we can see that price here mitigated this down close candle before this bullish movements. So basically we have this fair value gap resting above here. So let's check the daily time frame. So here in the daily time frame, last week I told us to expect to see the possibility of a bullish movement to the upside. Want to see price reaction at this fair value gap before we continue strongly bullish. But then we're looking forward to this buy side liquidity. And what we can clearly see, we just had this consolidation, very choppy market here, still within our inversion fair value gap, which is within the weekly fair value gap. So we can just see that the USD JPY is still showing us a sign of strength to the upside. We have the sweep of this low price, gave this bullish candle, we have this return. So price is just consolidating, but then we are seeing the possibility of a bullish movement to the upside. So if USDJPY is giving us the sign of a bullish movement to the upside, then we could see that the DXY has a possibility of respecting the weekly fair value gap that price has mitigated. So possibly USDJPY is just not clear also. It's still consolidating here, but then it's still giving us a sign of strength by not violating this inversion fair value gap. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here in the 4-hour time frame, we can clearly see the consolidation. We do not really know where price is heading to, but price is still respecting our zone. So we could just see an impulse to the upside. So also we just have to allow Monday to trade for the USDJPY pair also. But then we can still see this is just giving us a sign of a strength in the market. We can see price broke this, took out the liquidity, still mitigating this zone. If price would dip lower, then we'll be looking forward to this daily order block that we have here, the daily bullish order block here. So we could look to that and see if we're going to have bullish framework to the upside. So we could see bullish movements to this price movement here, or we could see price drop to this bullish order block, and then we could see bullish movements. So that is why I said we just have to wait to see the delivery of price on Monday. But then if you want to risk and work with the manipulation that the institutions would actually execute on Monday to hunt liquidity, then you can do that. But I would just want to be patient to see price delivery on Monday. So guys, let's check out the gold pair. So this is gold. Gold played out so nice and neatly last week. I was just so impressed by the movement of gold. I was really, really impressed by that. So what we can see, price respected the monthly fair value gap. I told us since we're seeing bullish movement, so we should expect to see price to take out this buy side liquidity, and we identify the weekly rejection block here. So let's go to the weekly time frame. So here in the weekly time frame, we can see price mitigated this weekly fair value gap, which is within the monthly fair value gap. We had the bullish movements. Now we can see the rejection block zone in the weekly time frame I spoke about last week. So how we can now see that volume is quite above the close price of this bullish candle and now the open price of the bearish colored candle. We can see how price is above that. So meaning if price is going to continue bullish, this is the drawn liquidity, this buy side liquidity. But most times when we see price in gold reaching an extreme all-time high, mitigating a zone, we could just see gold would now give a fall to the downside. So that is what possibly we could see happen in gold. Gold may not necessarily take out this buy side liquidity. We could see a bearish movement back to the downside. So let's check the daily time frame, but we know it is still strongly bullish to the upside. So let's check the daily time frame. So I told us if we're expecting to take our profit, I'll be looking to this daily fair value gap. Last week I told us to anticipate a pullback into this daily fair value gap, and then we frame our bullish movement to the upside to this fair value gap. So now what we can see is that price is reacting at this bearish order block that we have here. And now we can see volume close below the main threshold of the bearish order block. So that is why I said at times when gold reach an all-time high, it doesn't necessarily have to take out the buy side liquidity before we have a pullback to the downside. We could just see gold create a bearish movement to the downside and then before continuing bullish to the upside. So if gold is going to create that bearish movement, you can see we have this fair value gap resting here, and we have the sell side liquidity here, and we can see we have the rejection block, open and close price zone where price broke through. So we could see a return to retest that or dip more before the bullish continuation to the upside, or we could just see gold continue bullish to the upside. But basically gold does that. It is something that I've checked previous price delivery. When gold reach all-time high, it returns first before further sponsoring a movement to take out the high. So what we can clearly see here is this is just it. So we could see a return to mitigate this rejection block zone, and then we have the bullish continuation to the upside. So for the gold, we could just see further continuation to the downside before the bullish movements, or we could see gold again dip more lower to the downside into this zone, and then we have the bullish continuation to the upside. So this is basically my expectation in the gold pair. Or we could just see gold continues and then gives that bullish impulse to take out this all-time high points. But then this is what I'm looking forward to see in gold. Let's check the 4-hour time frame. So here clearly in the 4-hour time frame, what we can see is price mitigated the daily bearish order block. So we can see the movement to the downside. So you can see what we have is this bullish order block within the weekly rejection block zone that was violated. Price return, we tested that. So we could see that return to mitigate that. And then we have the bullish continuation to the upside without price possibly necessarily not having to go to the downside into the weekly fair value gap. Because now we can see this daily fair value gap is going to act as an inversion fair value gap. So price may just dip a little lower, and then we have the bullish continuation. So this is all I have to show us, guys. So till I see you guys next week, you can really join the free Telegram community so that when there is a change in narrative, you can be able to trade the few setups I make time to share in the free Telegram community. And if you're interested in the mentorship program, you can just kindly enroll. It is very, very affordable. So guys, cheers till I see you next week. God bless you all.